Hello, this is Tim, and I'm coming back to a subject that I dealt with last summer. It's dear Gavin Willamson, because today he's criticised on the front page of the Daily Star. It popped up on social media. I was very interested to see it. It's not the first time that Gavin has been criticised. The Yorkshire Post, we must remember, called him incompetent, ineffectual and inept. It's a nice tricolon. I'd be very proud of that. It's strange coming from the Yorkshire Post because they're talking about a Scarborough boy who they ought to be proud of. But I think what they're saying is quite apt. The Times branded him careless. I can quote, by far the worst performer in an underpowered cabinet. So at a time of national crisis when schools face serious uncertainty, where is Gavin? He's nowhere to be seen. He's done disappearing acts in the past and he's doing another disappearing act now. In the past, he did this especially when he was under pressure for messing up the A-levels and the GCSE exams, in the summer last year. Last year, you will recall, he left other people to resign while he squirreled away into a little corner of Whitehall. And you could say, why not? He has a survival instinct. It's probably the only instinct that he has that seems to have worked well for him. Now, I think the Prime Minister has clearly made a decision that now is not the time to sack incompetent ministers, no matter what people may say in the press. Actually, that decision probably does the PM good. It's probably a good thing for him to have clowns like Priti Patel and Gavin Willamson drawing the anger that might otherwise be directed towards him. They serve a political purpose. Now, more worryingly, they also can continue to control or manage or mismanage their departments and to draw their exorbitant salary. Now, for that salary, I think they should be doing a bit more work instead of pontificating from the safety of their Whitehall bunkers. So, I'm going to offer some encouragement for Gavin Willamson. The first thing that he should focus on is education, and he should do less focusing on his own political survival. Let's face it, his political future is over. He still has some time, I think, before he has to hand in his resignation to make a difference by making a change to what he does, by maybe allowing better people than he is to make decisions in his department. But it may be that at the moment he cannot see past his previous job as chief whip. I mean, if there are stories of bullying by Priti Patel in her department, they are nothing to the sort of stories of the exhaustion that is working in the education ministry. He makes people, I think the quotation, lose the will to live. He drains energy. He's a vacuum. He's a black hole, a void. Anthony Seldon, who I knew as the headmaster of Wellington College. In fact, every time I went to Wellington, he used to come up to me and say, are you on the staff? Well, I wasn't on the staff, and he never quite got used to the fact that every time he met me, he couldn't remember who I was. I suppose that's a comment on me. But Anthony Seldon calls him slick and canny. How strange. But I think Seldon is describing not an educationalist, but a politician. And slick and canny he really is, because he was sacked for indiscretion, serious indiscretion, when he was heading the Ministry for Defence, and he's resurfaced in education. He knows the secrets around Whitehall, because after all, he was chief whip. It could be said, I mean, if you were reading Hilary Mantel, you'd say, he knows where the bodies are buried. And actually, while we're on a sort of Tudor theme, the Erasmus Project. This is really what I want to talk about. The Erasmus was one of those great figures of Tudor history, a great academic. And the Erasmus Project has now gone. That was the project which allowed students from the UK to go and study in universities across Europe. In its place has been put the Turing scheme, initially to fund 35,000 students a year. It's brilliantly named and originally costed at £100 million. But now today, or a few days ago, we have learnt that that figure is going to be 110 million. It's a small price to pay, but new government schemes have a habit of rising in cost. Now, the worrying thing is not the rising cost, but that in the publicity, Gavin only addresses two benefits to the Turing scheme. The first, to target institutions beyond the European Union. Is this, I wonder, because the European Union as a whole might boycott the scheme because we have evaded the Erasmus scheme itself and the corresponding bill of £2 billion? Maybe the European Union will not respond as positively as it should to the scope of the Turing scheme. Number two is that Gavin Willamson says that the Turing scheme is to encourage social mobility. Well, I applaud this as well. And also the idea that it's to appeal to students from diversity of backgrounds. Great. But nowhere in the publicity is there any reference to educational or academic benefit. So here is an opportunity for Gavin to clarify the academic aims of the Turing scheme. I agree that education has social impact, but that is not its prime goal. And reading about the Turing scheme, I begin to think that Gavin's priorities have been skewed once again. And if they are so demonstrably skewed here, then they are skewed elsewhere. We need to ensure that our education system is substantial and run by someone who takes that job seriously. That means, by the way, that we encourage academic rigour in everything we teach and study. It is not the content of the course, be it Latin or hairdressing, but the quality of research and learning that takes place when we are looking at the subject. When students leave a school, or later when they leave their university, they should leave with an increased skill set of acumen, enthusiasm and attention to detail that they might apply to any new discipline thereafter. I would like to add the skill of writing an essay and constructing a coherent argument, mastering a brief. Now, mastering a brief, that would be something that would have been very valuable for the Education Secretary to have learnt. Mary Boosted, for example, believes that Gavin Willamson has been coasting all the time, that he's not done his homework, that he's not mastered his brief. I think that in general, we have seen our education globally drift towards spurious targets, box ticking and learning chunks of information, something that we were criticising in the 1960s of the education in the past. We're still making the same mistake now. We need instead to be developing the skills that we can use later. Willamson had an opportunity to change that, but he is no Estelle Morris, who, when she realised that the ministry was beyond her, she resigned. He would not recognise the end of a lesson if it came in the form of a booming gong or a shrill siren. We must wait for his successor, in other words, to do the work that he has absolutely failed to do. But he might be up to setting the scene for his successor. Someone recently, in a rather canny article, awarded him a U for achievement and a C+ for effort. I think that person was being extremely kind. I don't think Gavin Willamson makes very much effort at all with respect to the subject. He makes a lot of effort when it comes to his own survival. But I would add to those marks a B for potential. I think Gavin Williamson's potential, even now, even in the nadir of his political existence, even now, I think his potential is quite high. There is still time for him. There's still time for this foolish and incompetent, callous and cowardly, self-satisfied, irresponsible man to realise some of his potential before he has to go. So come on, Gavin, now is the time, and I need to go and feed the cat. Right. What do you need?